Zenlin, what are your thoughts on passive inflation, like artificially increasing MMR to help people get rewards later into the season? I asked because they do this in WoW, the game I main. So this is actually a great question. Zenlin asked like the idea of inflation of status in a ranked system. So this is the idea that you're playing a game and you're gold, and at the start of the season, gold means one thing, but then by the end of the season, it actually becomes easier to be gold. And so at the end of the season, by not improving, you could actually even rise up in MMR and get to platinum or something, right? That's the idea. It's elo inflation. It's the idea that if you start without improving, you can go up, right? You can increase in power, increase in rank over the course of a season. Now, at face value, a lot of people who hear that idea will look at it and be like, that's bad. That's scamming you. That's not real display of skill, and you should never do it, right? But the reality is that many, many, many games do this. Many, 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 many games do this, especially phone games. The vast majority of phone games that have ranked systems have inflationary ranked systems, where if you just play games, quite literally just play games, and don't really get better, you will raise in rank. You will just go up. And as a dev, my opinion on it is, honestly, for the lower ranks, that's probably a good thing. Because what a lower rank player is often looking for is a feeling of progress, a feeling that they're getting better. And so by augmenting actually getting better with some degree of over time, you'll just go up in general, that actually gets people to want to engage in your ranked system. Whereas, and then eventually, by the way, eventually get better at the game. And so I think there's a big difference between taking, like, say, an iron player in any given game and saying, hey, you're iron and you deserve to be there, and then just hitting them with a bat and keeping them in iron for literally forever, versus like, hey, you're iron, but play some games and you'll get to bronze eventually. And by the way, once you get to bronze, if you improve, you get to silver, right? I think that's a lot more aspirational of a journey. And so by giving players who aren't improving some journey to their season, and then by the end, you more likely create a situation where those players will eventually improve, is I guess what I'm getting at. And I think it's a lot worse if you just say, hey, you've played 500 games and you're never going anywhere. It's just like, that can be really rough. And so I actually think what a lot of phone games do is pretty smart. And then also another thing that goes on here is, actually, before I go to that, what I don't think is correct, though, is doing that at the highest of levels. I think there's a big difference between Apex tier and low tier players, and they have different needs. A lower tier player wants to feel like they're getting better so that they can advance enough time to eventually get better. An Apex tier player already knows they're good and wants a more real and true version of their skill. And so my personal take is, in the lower ranks, having an inflationary rank system like many phone games do, I think is actually a pretty good thing. So that you get that feeling of progress, you get that feeling of growth, and which then excites you for the game and makes you want to play it more and makes you want to get better at it. And then in the Apex tiers, where explicit rank matters a lot more, not just for like things like matchmaking, but also for things like clout and things like, hey, it means something if I say I'm a diamond at this game, or it means something if I say I'm grandmaster, elite, grand captain, supreme, right? Like, those things mean something. I think that's where you're supposed to get a lot stricter and tighter with how good, like, what your rank actually means, and be a lot more like, you literally will not go up unless you improve. The Apex tiers where that matters the most, the really high tiers of play. And so I think actually probably an optimal rank system for people actually like wanting to play your game and enjoy your game and get good at your game, like legitimately get good and improve at your game, is some mix of the two, where lower on the ladder you have a bit of inflation to it, whereas higher on the ladder the inflation, like, it goes down. Another thing to note that's actually really tough here in regards to this whole thing, because I'm sure some of you are listening here and you're like, why would you even suggest that? You're just lying to players. You're scamming them. Your rank is your rank is your rank is your rank. How dare you suggest that you nudge them up over time, right? Like, why would you ever do that in any game? One of the very real things is because so many games do it, if you don't do it, there's a lot of players who will say your game feels bad and has a bad ranked system. And so, again, going back to phone games, because so many phone games are so highly inflationary with their ranks, and so many phone games, their ranks are mainly just about playing the game, what will happen is, let's say you're a player and you play, I don't know, Grandmaster God Elite Gamers, the phone game, right? And in Grandmaster God Elite Gamers, your rank is Grandmaster God Elite, but you're not very good because it was inflated, right? But you're like, that doesn't matter because you perceive your rank to be Grandmaster God Elite, right? And then you go play another game that doesn't have that thing going on, and they put you in Iron, right? And you're like, but I'm not Iron. I'm Grandmaster God Elite. This game clearly has a terrible rank system and they don't know what they're doing, and I'm done, right? And so one of the things is that there's this effect where if a lot of the games surrounding you are making their ranks kind of like go up, then then if your game is not also doing that, there's a very real risk of your game feeling deeply unsatisfying to people who are used to the other games, and very, very unenjoyable to the point where they just won't want to play your ranked system anymore because they're like, this ranked system is broken, it doesn't represent my skill, and it doesn't feel like I'm improving. And so that is one of the complications there. Another interesting thing about like ranked perception actually is, I think one of the really interesting things about ranked perception is the standard League of Legends set for many games in the industry, specifically what Diamond means. So League was one of the first games. I'm not going to say it was the first game. I don't have like my historian hat on, but it was one of the first games to implement like the gold, silver, diamond kind of ranks, right? And interestingly enough, League and League was big, and also League's ranks historically have always been very, very competitive. Like, even to this day, it is very, very hard to be a diamond player in League of Legends. And back in the day, diamond was like 1% of the player base. Nowadays, like, I think it's like diamond 1 or diamond 2 that's 1% of the player base, and diamond 3 or 4 is like 5%. But back in the day, diamond was even more restrictive. And what it created, very interestingly, is all these other games came out that also did ranks like silver, gold, diamond, and what it created is prestige for diamond, even if the diamond in the other games didn't mean the same as diamond in League. And this affects me even though I know about it, right? Like, if I go get diamond in another game, I feel just as good as if I got diamond in League, even though I know it's not nearly as skillful to get diamond in other games. But like, when I got like diamond in like Overwatch or Valorant, I was like, yo, I'm diamond, just like in League, right? And like, I was like, that was so cool for me, even though in Valorant and Overwatch, diamond is actually like a much higher percentage of the players compared to League of Legends. And so it's kind of an interesting phenomenon of, because League was this like, older game that did these ranks earlier and was a big game, it kind of set like an expectation of what diamond means. And so now these other games where diamond tends to be easier to get, it's still very exciting to say you're diamond because like the expectation of what diamond means has already been set of like, well, diamond's cool, diamond's like means you're good, right? Yeah. August, 1% today is grandmaster. It's way more competitive. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure grandmaster is like pegged at 800 people, right? Am I crazy? Let's see. Grandmaster is, oh no, dude, it's diamond 1. Diamond 1 is still top 1%. Grandmaster is top 0.1% to 0.05%. Yeah, Grandmaster is top 0.1%. I think you lost to 0. Grandmaster is definitely not top 1%. That statement is blatantly wrong. Yeah, Master gets close to 1%, but Master is still above 1%. So if you're in Diamond 1, you're roughly in the top 1% of players. And if you're Master, you're roughly in the top like 0.8 to 0.6% of players. And then grandmaster is like 0.1% of players. So yeah.